Shalom, welcome to our Erev Shabbat talk. I'm Avraham Shira, and we're in Parshat Tetzaveh in the Zohar Kadosh. In the very beginning of the Parsha, we see a very interesting question, a difficulty brought by Rabbi Yechiya, and he brings it that why here in the Torah is God saying Tetzaveh, you will command? Why doesn't it just say command? Why do we need this extra word you? And he brings many examples. Kach lacha, take for you. When he doesn't need to tell for you. He doesn't need this word ata. And ata, tidaber el bnei Yisrael. V'ata, tomar le bnei Yisrael. And so many places we see in the Torah that God is introducing his discourse with Moses with this word ata. You. I'm already speaking to you for 40 years, God. Why is he introducing? So the Zohar comes up, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and they talk about it for a while from different angles about the union in the upper and the lower light. But reading through this, I'm trying to, what does it mean to us? Where does it take us? How does it help us serve God? How does it help us feel good about, our place here on this planet, and developing a relationship with the Creator? God, I don't hear God in my ear too often, but listen to what Rabbi Shimon says. No, it all is perfect. The reason that we have this atah is that God wants to join the Shekhinah to Moses. That saying the word atah is a way of God bestowing the Shekhinah's presence on Moses. Now, you could say, well, look, God spoke to Moses all the time. Wasn't the Shekhinah always with him? Well, there's no such thing as a static, all the time, same level relationship with the divine. God is a very busy God. And sometimes you're in the front of the line. Sometimes you're right there and he's speaking to you, atah, face to face. And sometimes, he gives a command that's for the whole people. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. That's when God's speaking from the mountain. He's not speaking to one person. He's speaking to everybody. And sometimes he's speaking to Moses and to Aaron, and sometimes also to Miriam. And so you see, there's all these different levels of the way God communicates. And he uses different words for different types of communication, whether it's a command or it's an advice, or as Rabbi Nachman calls the mitzvot, or it's an action versus a speech. And so all of these details are just embedded in the simple way that God introduces his talking to Moses. Okay, but back to, my Tamid, I'll continue his question. Well, how does it relate to us? How does it help us? So, so he says over here, he says, Ata tidaber kol chochmei lev. Right, you hear, Mike? You will speak, and you will speak, el kol chochmei lev, to all those who are wise of heart. Now, that implies that Moses is going to be able to interpret who is wise of heart at any given moment. I don't think Moses is necessarily going to sit there in front of 3 million people and start picking out the wise of heart. But when it's the Shekhinah is attached to him, he's going to have the inner vision. He's going to see immediately who the one is and who isn't. And I've seen other rabbis that they have this level, this ability to perceive in the differences in people instantaneously. Who's on the level, who's not on the level, who's partially on the level, who's against them. I've seen all of that. Okay, now he says, begin with Kuluhu lo atya leme'avad uvdetir ad ruach kudsha memale be'gavayhu. He says, and the reason is because nobody will come out and do the work of the Mishkan and bring the offerings and bring the materials to make the Mishkan without being told to do it. And he tells us, and this being told means by Ruach HaKodesh, that people will not just intuitively serve God, unless they feel that inner inspiration. And he calls it here, v'lahashlon b'lichishu. And he whispers in a whispering, that they hear it in their own head. So you see, there's this level where you hear it in your own head. Now, are you sitting there and, you're in the line at the store and somebody's out of money. They need another 5 shekels to finish their purchase. And, everybody's waiting and the person is scrambling. They can't find another dollar, and it's embarrassing and there's stress and no one has patience because it's Erev Shabbat. why not just reach in your pocket, give them the extra buck, and in your head, it's telling you to do it, but my hand is stuck in my pocket. Think about it. These things happen all the time. We get these little whisperings to do things, but we don't listen. We don't follow them because we don't understand. Maybe it's coming from a higher place. And this is something that we have to work on, something to pay attention to. But when you pay attention to it, we understand why even here at the level of building the Mishkan in the desert with the Shekhinah present, still people need to be told. They need to hear the lower inspiration. Lower meaning it's coming from a high place, but it's speaking into a person through his own voice, whispering him, telling him what to do. Va'ata Tetzaveh et bnei Israel, and you, Moses, command the Jews. He didn't say command the Jews. He says you, Moses. And that's that Ruach Kudsha Pakda Alayhu, that the Holy Spirit opened up on him and commanded him. Vanhir Alayhu, and illuminated him. So you see, even Moses can be sitting there in a relatively, I don't want to say uninspired place, but a place of equanimity with all reality around him. But being at equanimity, which is a wonderful state, tranquil, peaceful, at well-being with yourself and with the world around you, that's not the state of the higher inspiration. The higher inspiration is when the voice tells you to do something. And the beautiful thing is, and we're going to be teaching in a book that I'm just about ready to publish, this very idea that we have to get to that place of equanimity and peace in order to hear the whispering of what we need to do for God in any given moment. In order to do the work with a complete will. That it's not me wanting to do something, and it's not God wanting me to do it, but I don't want to do it, or I'm safek, A lot of times people are in doubt. Do they want to do it? Do they not want to do it? Should I give them the dollar? Should I not give them the dollar? All these kind of questions that seem trivial after the fact. But at the moment of any challenge, it's still a challenge. But the point is there is a level where both wills are one. That's the ultimate level, where our will and God's will are one, and that's where we can, and that's ata kachlacha, take for you, Moses. It's not for me, it's for you. The incense spices that are going to be brought in this new Mishkan that's being built in the desert now in the Torah story. And you draw close for you to you. In other words, God is consistently telling Moses, it's you, Moses. It's you, Moses. And it's kind of like a confidence builder. Now, am I thinking that Moses didn't have confidence? No, God forbid. But when you are inspired, you don't even necessarily know that you're inspired. And how do we see that? Because of when Moses came down from the mountain and he saw people staring at him, and he didn't know why they were staring at him, and they were terrified because the light was beaming off his face. It says like two horns, as the old Michelangelo mistaken interpretation goes. Two beams of light were coming off his forehead, and he didn't know that those two beams were there until he saw the way the people were terrified to look at him, and he had to bring the masveh, a little mask over his face. And so you can be at this very high level and not even know that you're at that level. And that's really this truth about the case of Moses, that he had this connection to God, but God still had to tell him, Ata, do it, you. And the word you, by the way, Ata, is a holy name. Of course, it's a pronoun that means you, Ata. But Aleph, Tav, Hey is a name Rabbi Nachman teaches for Hatzalah B'yam, which means being saved at sea. Now, God forbid we should never need to be saved at sea. It's happened to me. One time, my wife and I were out in the ocean, and we got pulled in an undertow, and I started yelling Ata to God above the waves. We were being pulled down, and out of nowhere, I'm telling you, we're 30 meters off the coast, and suddenly the two giant, surfboards showed up with lifeguards, and it was a miracle. And I called on that name, Ata. So there's secrets woven into the secrets, and the more we learn, the more we see behind the scenes of what God is telling us in the simple words of the Torah are never simple. And Mishkan, and all of this is happening in the building of the Mishkan. Because people are people, and they, I might have a pocket full of gold to give the Mishkan, but until I'm commanded to do it, maybe I'm not going to do it. And so, but when you're commanded, that means the Shekhinah is talking to you. It's your special time, your special mitzvah, your moment in the sun. And he even says that here, that it's when the sun shines completely on the moon. There's a full moon. There's a full shining of the sun on the moon. That's the idea of when God's light completely envelops your light and makes it one light. And that's when the lower inspiration of man wanting to do God's will, which is a very good inspiration, reaches the upper pinnacle of assuming the place of God's will. Now, you can't go around telling the world, oh, I'm doing God's will. It was God's will that I ran my car into your truck. I've heard things like that too, blame it on God. No, it's not like that. And it's just something that's very modest and very, very hidden inside between you and your Creator. But sometimes you can be commanded because something needs to be done in the world. And you're the right person in the right place at the right time to do it. So Atah is the little whisper of God waking us up to a special moment in our lives, what we need to do, when we need to do it. And we see that it's happening with Moses. And if it's happening with someone as great as Moses, and the sages are commenting on it and explaining it to us, then it's not so far away. It's not far away deep in the past in a book. It's right here in your heart and in your head when you learn to be quiet and to listen and to pay attention and to be at peace until the moment of action. And when it comes, it comes. And when it's gone, it's gone. So we should all be blessed with that sensitivity and to honor ourselves, honor your thoughts, honor your silence, honor the fact that maybe you don't have anything to say. And that might be just the place where you can hear something you have not heard before. So let's all be blessed. And on Shabbat, of course, is the day sanctified for this type of service, this type of quiet contemplation and song and dance and joy and being with our families and, partaking of the week's work and appreciating that, another week has happened, another week closer to the ultimate redemption of all of humanity. And it's coming close, I just heard a word from the Gra, Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, who said that when the Ukraine, he said this 250 years ago, that when the Ukraine is threatened with war by Russia, don't take off your Shabbos clothes. Don't take off the days of the clothes of celebration, because the redemption is close, very, very close. And there are stages. Just like there are levels of inspiration, every person at their level, so too there are stages of redemption, of revelation, of the presence, of the knowledge, of the awareness of our place in the universe and our job and our relationship to each other and God. So it's going to happen. It's going to come slow and from within, but when it happens, it's not going away. It's going to stay and get bigger and better and greater until all humanity leaves behind the silliness, the gods of gold and silver, as Isaiah says. So God bless you. I'll have a great Shabbat. We'll see you on all the platforms this coming week and look forward to hearing from you. God bless you all.